Did your parents both know, or was it until?
I think my mother knew. My father, I think, held out in denial as long as he could.
The Barbie dolls weren't a dead giveaway?
No, man, I was Tonka trucks and lighter fluid. So
Maybe it was the 4 hairy legs sticking out of his bed one day.
This is gonna hurt. It's time for the Suffering Podcast. When our eyes first open upon being born, those we see around us are all that we know. Our hopes for survival rest solely within their hands, as we are the most vulnerable that we will ever be in our entire lives. Their grace allows us to move further in this world. As we grow, with each year, those around us become less about survival and more about support, teaching us the values that will make us good human beings, guiding our actions in both good times and bad. Some of us are fortunate to have a strong foundation in which to construct our lives. Others have nothing but sandy, unstable ground to build upon. Whether your family is blood or not, they leave an indelible mark on how your life unfolds. I'm Kevin Donaldson here with Mike Failace, and on this episode of the Suffering Podcast, we welcome back our family. That's Mark Hettinger and Ashley Marie Turry. I say all three names, Ashley, to discuss the suffering of family dynamics. They have probably one of the most interesting family dynamics I've ever heard of in my life, and we brought them in tonight. We brought them back. They're both former guests to talk about that. Thank you so much for coming in.
thank you for having us.
That's nice to see brother and sister sitting in the same room. We want to give a big shout out to our marquee sponsor. That's Toyota of Hackensack. We don't trust anybody, but we do trust Toyota of Hackensack. So if you're looking for a car, go to toyotahackensack.com. Let them find you a car.
And all I got to say is strap up, because we've had so much fun already.
Strap on, strap up, whatever you want to do.
So you had to go there already.
Well, you egged me on. Listen, you throw a softball up there. You think I'm not going to hit it? So thanks. You know, the cool thing about both of you is you've become very near and dear to us. We talk about you a lot because you're big supporters of ours, and it's an unlikely friendship. I remember the first time Ashley was coming in, and you vetted us.
Yeah. You better believe it.
Big time.
We've had a couple conversations about that. We're like, well, who are these guys? You know, like, we're going to bring you down into a basement, kick the shit out of you or something.
Right, it was down in the bay. We had in the dungeon
audio
back
recording.
then.
And we, you know, the cool thing about Ashley's episode is the same questions that we had about you, a lot of people have had. But they've been too afraid to ask you because they don't want to offend you. They're trying to be kind. But that's why we wanted to get it out. And you were so open. I can't thank you enough for that.
I mean, that was great. Open and honest. That was a great episode. That was a lot of fun.
And then, Mark, you came in, and like as soon as we recorded Ashley told me about you. I'm like, yeah, we got to do it.
We need him
too. But we brought you both in here for a very, very good reason. But before we get into that, our social media question. And it comes, I love this little name. The guy was, or girl, or whoever it was, Crack-a-lackin'. It just makes me laugh. Since you both are in the life-saving fields, I pulled this one, and it says, what is the most impressive Good Samaritan act you've ever witnessed? I like to go clockwise. No offense to anybody. Mark, lead this one off.
So this is going to be a segue for a future guest of yours, but I had responded to an emergency call, and it was a very severe call. A person was run over by a vehicle, and out of nowhere, this Good Samaritan comes running up behind me and says, let me help. And he's pushing me out of the way. And I look at him. He's wearing scrubs. And I'm like, can I help you? What are you doing here? He's like, oh, I'm a doctor. So I've learned the hard way. Well, what kind of doctor? Because usually they end up being a dentist, chiropractor. And he looks at him and he goes, no, I'm a trauma surgeon. And I was like, okay, all yours. And this guy dug right in and made a huge difference.
Ashley, what do you think?
It's hard to pick one. We see so many. Like you said, we're in the medical field, so we see it all the time. Honestly, it's the everyday stuff that really gets me. The people that will stop for the old lady that fell on the sidewalk, or the guy that fell in his driveway, and the neighbors are always out there. People are always willing to help.
Mike?
You know, one that comes to mind is we had a pretty bad car accident. It was like a rear end car accident. The guy's head snapped, and he was just hanging over the steering wheel, you know. Before we got there, a guy jumped in the back seat and stabilized his neck. He had blood all over his hands and everything else. And I thought for a civilian to do that, to have the wherewithal to jump into a car like that and not worrying about people's blood or anything like that and just stabilize the guy's neck until everybody got there, I thought that was huge.
Most people run the other way.
Yeah, exactly. Or they get out their cell phone camera and they start videotaping the whole thing.
So does anybody here know the origins of the Good Samaritan? Okay, so it's a biblical thing. So the road to Jerusalem ran right through Samaria, and Jews and Samaritans were mortal enemies. They hated each other. As a matter of fact, when they took the pilgrimage, they would go around Samaria.
Were you there that day?
Yes.
I know you're old.
They used to go around.
He laid the stones
around Samaria, because if they went through Samaria, there was a probability that they were going to be killed. So Jesus goes through Samaria, and he's thirsty, and he goes to the well, and he sees a Samaritan woman, and he asks for a drink, and it was unheard of for not only a man to talk to a woman, an unwed man to talk to an unwed woman, and this woman wasn't seen as a good person. She had 5 husbands, and she was living with a guy who wasn't her husband. And woman drew water from the well, gave it to Jesus, and that's the good Samaritan story. And I thought it's such a beautiful story, because to just put it in context, that's like saying somebody's a good Nazi. Okay, for everybody to think about, that person's a good Nazi. It's unheard of in our world. And we have a tendency to judge everybody by the lowest common denominator. We judge everybody by what we see, by what we hear, or how we're treated by somebody who may be just a little bit like them. But we got to be very careful with that, because although you may have had one bad experience with a group of people or a certain type of person, or you may be harboring feelings towards a certain group of people, don't judge everybody the same way. You're going to fail. You're going to be surprised. But the beautiful thing in that is when you open up your mind and you realize not everybody is the same, there's good Samaritans everywhere. There really is. If somebody was racist and didn't like black people, well, guess what? A black person may be there to save your life one day. Or an Asian person, or a trans person, or a gay person, or you're never coming. So I'm
the one with the video camera.
Yeah, there's good Samaritans everywhere, and just an act of kindness to go against the grain. To me, that's the best good Samaritan that I can pick out. I don't know if that makes sense to anybody. Maybe it's just me rambling. Crack-a-lackin', thank you so Thank you so much for sending that one in. Keep sending in your questions. We will try to get them on the air.
I thought it was crack-a-lickin'. I was going to say that's Nick.
Oh, jeez.
So, Ashley, you were on quite some time ago. I'm going to say a year and a half, probably. Yeah, easy. Mark, you're about a year.
Yeah,
you're
episode 84-ish.
84, so this is going to be episode 137. You're coming in. I want to give everybody a little recap on your episodes. Ashley, since you were the first to come in, the first one to brave into the studio when we were only on audio.
See, now he's not going counter.
No, I have to. I try to equal out. Yeah. I try to equal out.
He did vet you though.
I know he did. We talked. him and I talk more than you think. We do. We call each other up. He's the one who introduced me to his trauma surgeon friend. And I actually have a phone call with him this week. He's an interesting dude. But I want to give everybody a little recap on your story, your episode.
Well, I am a trans woman. I struggled with my gender identity, anxiety, depression, all through my childhood and young adult years. Eventually led me to full-blown addiction. And eventually I was able to overcome all that and finally embrace who I really am. And I'm here today fighting and trying to help the next person in line.
And I got to tell you, for being a trans woman, you bring some beautiful people into this studio.
No kidding.
What the hell?
Oh, jeez.
You sell a pretty good product over there.
But I mean, just getting back to that, is it easier being a trans woman these days than it used to be? Because I mean, now it's more accepted.
It's definitely easier in the whole, but it's actually harder dating.
Easier in the
It's
whole.
harder dating. Explain that one.
Being trans, we tend to date a lot of other trans women. Well, I'm
That
lesbian.
doesn't-
I identify as lesbian.
But
so
that
I
doesn't
date
make
other-
any sense. Like you're
But-
like dating another trans woman doesn't make sense in my head.
A lot of stuff doesn't make sense up there.
Yeah, I'm sure, but that's why I'm asking that question.
I identify as lesbian, so I date other trans women. And as a
But you got an advantage over every lesbian out there. You understand that. It's an unlevel playing field.
it's not though, because there's so many counterproductive parts to it. Like
No, parts are exactly what I'm talking about.
I knew where he was going.
I know where he's going. I'm trying not to go there.
Music.
Put that up there. So explain to me why it's more difficult.
Well, again, because like the lesbians date the lesbians, the bi girls date the bi girls. You'd think as a lesbian you'd have options for both, or bi you'd have options for both, but you really don't. It's very exclusive. And then, I said, trans women tend to date a lot of other trans men and women, and that just your dating pool is drastically decreased.
Yeah, but those people who do date trans women, whether it's a man or a woman, I would think that they would be more vested and more willing to give it their all, rather than a regular, say, heterosexual couple. They sort of dip their toe in the water to see if they like it. Where it's a little bit more of a commitment. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, well, I'm sure you've heard U-Haul lesbian. We're ready to move in after the first date.
And you have to sit here and listen to your sister talk like this. Do you want me to go get the bar of soap from the bathroom so you can wash your mouth out?
No, let it out.
You live with one of the most
intriguing.
Yeah, he says some of the shit that comes out of your partner's mouth is just like, wow.
No, that's because you just turned them on and never turned them off. That's your fault.
Yeah, well, but I love Nick. I love Nick to death. Same way I love both of you. Mark, what do you think? Just give everybody a little recap on your episode.
So you guys had reached out. We came in, my partner Nick and I, we talked about what it was like being a LGBTQ gay first responder coming out right after high school, getting involved in emergency services, dealing with all the hate and the comments and
which is not the traditional. That's not the traditional avenue you go to in the LGBTQ.
Yeah, it's a male dominated field,
right?
And it's a highly type A heterosexual masculine
just like the police department.
Yeah, that's how I'm judging
all first responders generally.
Yeah, it was very tough. And again, my first fire company wasn't too cool with it. I ended up moving and found a new company, new family, and was great. Evolved myself, brought myself up, and then eventually found myself a house in another town. Ended up moving again and met that fire department, and they brought me in with open arms. And they're a huge, great family. A bunch of them are your followers.
Well, so as being a fireman and being gay, there's an enormous amount of things that they can say that are inappropriate.
Oh, yeah.
Enormous. And I'm sure you heard them all.
Sliding down a pole.
You're flaming more than the house. I'm sure.
That's a good one.
Yeah, I like that one.
That's what those cops say about us behind our back when they're sitting in a cop car while we're in
Actually,
the house.
we defended you last week on an episode because somebody said all firemen are gay. And I said, well, I happen to know a gay fireman.
Yeah.
I'm not lying to you. Mike can vouch for this one. So I want everybody to understand that the reason that Mike and I can speak very candidly and openly with Mark and Ashley is because once you come in here, you are family. We hold that maxim very, 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 very dear to our hearts. And this is not a conversation that could be had over a first meeting. It wouldn't work.
No, we've grown to know you guys and appreciate everything you guys do, your support.
Well, the thing is, me and Kevin, we don't judge. I think that's the main thing about it. We don't judge. We'll let you come in here and say whatever you want.
Oh, we know.
I always say, I treat people the way they treat me. I don't care what you are. I don't care what your sexual orientation, what your race, anything like that.
That was your upbringing. What's your heritage?
Yeah, exactly. I'm Italian.
Right.
I was never born in a racist, type of atmosphere.
Right.
I always said I didn't meet a black guy until I went to high school.
See, and contrary to that, I was very bigoted, very racist household. It wasn't until I moved away that my eyes sort of got opened that, no, just because somebody's a different color or a different sexual orientation doesn't mean they're an asshole. Because I know plenty of people that are traditional, quote unquote traditional, that are giant assholes.
Yeah, traditional assholes.
But at least you opened up, right? You could have stayed that way. You chose not to.
Well, I met the right people.
Right.
That's what it is. I met the right people to show me the other way. And then they were willing to answer certain questions that I had.
It was right after his first gay experience.
Oh, man, you just broke Nick's heart.
It's got to come in with the gay jokes, don't you? Got to come in with the gay jokes.
It's better than submarine jokes.
So I don't know. You were looking for a submarine an hour ago.
Yeah, I was. I was actually going to insure that submarine, try to collect a little bit of money. But so did any of those names that you got called, did they stick in you a little bit?
When I was younger, they did. And then as I got older and realized it's just hate.
Was it something also you became a little bit more secure in yourself?
Oh, most certainly. Yeah. Most certainly. As I matured and as I toughened up, those things and those people meant less and less.
The funny
comments mean less and less too.
Yeah.
We've been in situations where somebody might say something derogatory towards, and now with a different perspective, somebody might say something derogatory towards a gay or trans, and now we have a little bit more stake in the game where we would say, no, that's just really not true.
You got your cards.
We do. We
can whip them out.
Mark and don't whip anything
wins.
out.
Oh, look at that.
Overkill. Oh well, we got to get Derek we got to get Derek to sign that.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah,
may go right on my truck.
But Mark and Nick were kind enough to give us honorary. What is it? It's
straight allies of
LGBTQ and
plus.
But I know it's a joke. Like I do.
Those were sincere.
It's kind of like a gag gift.
Correct.
Okay? But I take it very, very seriously. I wear that like you have no idea how many times I've taken that out and I go, somebody thought enough of us to give us this.
Right.
And whether it's a gag gift or not, I took it very, very seriously. Maybe I shouldn't. But
I got it right in my wallet. I carry it with me wherever I go.
It was sincere. Your guys' support and caring has uplifted my sister. It's uplifted me and the rest of our community.
Nick don't weigh too much, so it's not hard to uplift him.
Don't get him
he needs
excited.
a cheeseburger is what he needs.
He's listening to this.
He needs a sandwich.
Not live, so we got about 4 weeks where we can run away.
He needs a sandwich.
We don't got to run. We just go out to eat.
How can you be Italian and let your partner be so skinny? What's the matter with you?
Because he's vegetarian.
Oh.
Okay, pasta.
He loves pasta, pierogies,
Pasta,
French
pizza,
fries.
and French fries.
Pasta is a side dish to meat.
There's the
Says the
carnivore in
macho
him.
man.
Yeah, he doesn't have spaghetti and meatballs. He has meatballs and spaghetti.
So the only thing that's missing to this equation is you have another brother.
Correct.
Okay. And Ashley and Mark are brother and sister who your parents had to put up with things that most parents don't have to put up with or from a very early age pray they never have to put up with. So I wanted to bring you in here to speak about this family dynamic because there are other parents that are listening. If you look at the mean age of most of our listeners, we're parent ages. And one day it's going to come, I'm sure most parents hope it doesn't because it's a very difficult lifestyle. Not so much now, but it was always a difficult lifestyle where the son or daughter comes to them and says, I feel like a woman. I feel like a man, or I'm gay. I'm whatever I am. And it's a difficult conversation to have with your kids. How did you both, from a very early age, you both knew?
Yeah. I have to agree with that.
Did your parents both know, or was it until?
I think my mother knew. My father, I think, held out in denial as long as he could.
The Barbie dolls weren't a dead giveaway?
No, man, I was Tonka trucks and lighter fluid. So
Maybe it was the 4 hairy legs sticking out of his bed one day.
4?
Yeah.
Yours and 2 others, or
No.
yours and 2
it was
sets more?
probably the friends sleeping over, but one twin bed.
Yeah, right. Like one day at band camp.
Yeah.
So it's the funny thing. I got a 13-year-old, and he's got a girlfriend, and my wife is
She sleeps on the couch, right?
No, she doesn't sleep. Hell no. Hell no.
Coming to a 4 hairy legs coming out of his bed too.
So, my wife is very.
Better get him a manscaper.
My wife is very conscious that she's not a grandmother when her oldest is only 13. Like, that's the big conversation. Don't be in a room. You're not allowed to go in her bedroom. Make sure the parents are home and stuff. But if he was gay and would have one of his friends over and say we didn't know it, say we were in denial like your father, we would have no problem. A friend sleeping over or, a friend going in the bedroom, we would have no problem because we wouldn't see the threat there because our eyes aren't focused
Well, there is no
on it.
threat. You ain't making a baby.
This is true.
It's true.
Hey, Mom, can I borrow the lotion? Yeah. That would be the worst conversation. But yes, that is true. But like, I'm not worried about being a grandfather. I'm worried. I think they're too young to have sexual relations. That's just my opinion. But you know, if it was the other way around and say he was gay, there would be, because our eyes aren't looking that way.
Right.
All right. So was that your parents? Did your parents, or especially your father, in denial where it would never be an issue? Support for the Suffering Podcast is brought to you by Manscaped, who's the best in men's below-the-waist grooming.
Their products are precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. Manscaped Performance Package is the ultimate men's hygiene bundle.
Inside the package, you'll find the Lawnmower 4.0, Weed Whacker Ear, Nose, Hair Trimmer, and the Crop Preserver Ball Deodorant.
And we also got the Crop Reviver Ball Toner. This thing is a life changer. Along with that, boxer briefs.
I'm going to tell you what, these are like high quality boxer briefs, and this is no joke. I'm not saying this just because Manscaped sent it to us. These are nice. My boys are going to be quite happy in there.
You can't tell Kevin's wearing them under the table right now. And we also have a nice travel package.
Join over 8 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with this exclusive offer just for you. 20% off and free worldwide shipping with the code TSP at manscaped.com.
Jesus Christ, that's a lot of balls.